Hey, welcome to Super Social Club. I'm Jeremy.
This is Whisky In, I'm Rob.
Welcome to the Whiskey Rant podcast.
It's a little crusty.
It's frustrating.
And it's going to be a little bit of a rant.
I don't understand it. I don't know why.
Some sort of injustice.
Anyway, end rant.
Hello and welcome back to the Whiskey Rant podcast. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Rob.
We are outside tonight, changing up a little bit tonight. Going to talk about what it's like to drink whiskey or other spirits outside in the elements and how that might affect nose and taste.
Yeah, we got Alberta Premium here tonight because it's a little bolder, a little stronger, and it can kind of stand up to the elements, I think.
Yeah, so when drinking outside, selecting our value whiskey tonight, I want to pick something that will, like you said, stand up to the elements, something that's stronger. Drinking outside, you have all the stuff around you, not really something that a light whiskey might necessarily be good for.
Yeah, you're not going to pick out the notes on a Glengoyne 12 out here. 43%, it's just not going to work for you.
Take your Glenmorangie 10-year-old and leave it in the cabinet. Get something bold outside. My personal preference, actually I did a video on drinking outside. When I was camping, I brought a couple whiskeys with me, and it was the Lot 40 cask strength that kind of won out for me because it has those strong spice notes that really kind of work well with the outside elements.
Yeah, so we decided tonight to go with the Alberta Premium cask strength because they share a couple things in common. A, they're both cask strength. B, they're both 100% rye.
Sure.
Right.
Also on tonight's show, we're going to go with kind of like a rant. It's kind of going to blend into what's going on with current topics in WhiskeyTube, and that's biases when reviewing whiskey.
Yeah, biases towards various distilleries. We all kind of have them. We all have our Homer type distillery that we love, and we're going to go through a little bit of that.
Yeah, like your favorite distillery, they bring out an expression that you're super hyped about. Do you have a preconceived notion about that whiskey? Is it going to affect the way that you talk about it in a whiskey review? So we'll touch on that. Secondary market finds. The Weller single barrel has hit the secondary market, and you are going to be shocked of what the numbers are on this bottle at first launch. It is outstanding.
The full proof came out, last
year? Full
year?
proof was last year. Yeah, single barrel this year. Weller just making the taters tate, as they like to say. So we'll talk about how much that bottle is going for. So real quick, Alberta Premium rye, like you said, 100% rye.
Yep.
This was bottled at 65.1%.
65.1%. It's a beast. It doesn't taste like it's 65.1 for sure. But, I mean, you may need to add some water. We do have our little dropper over here. But, yeah, the nose really stands out and stands up to the climate, which is very hard to do outside. Mm-hmm. Remember, you're smelling, depending on where you live, if you live in the city, you're getting all the car pollution and, just all the garbage collection that's just on the streets and stuff like that. If you live in the suburbs, you might get, something as simple as the draft of manure, when people are gardening and whatever else, right? I mean, maybe not in all suburbs, but in some. And then just the air in general has a different smell outside. When you smell a whiskey, it's not as clean or nice smelling as when you're smelling inside, I find.
Yeah, I think for me, drinking outside, definitely go towards a barrel-proof bourbon, something peated, or something like a high rye cask strength. This one came out 2019, was it?
2019, yeah. Just before, I think in the fall of 2019 it came out. Yeah, it's 2019. I saw it on the box over here.
Something that Canadian whiskey is moving towards, definitely at the direction of Wiser's, and Don Livermore is presenting stuff at cask strength. Obviously the Lot 40, the cask strength Lot 40, huge success. Alberta Premium following suit with their own cask strength version. Yeah, really good stuff. The fruit notes on this thing is really, really nice.
Honestly, when I opened this bottle, what I was amazed at is the amount of apricot puree I got from the nose and even on the palate. It's just unbelievable. You don't believe that you're having a 100% rye because it just.
I think for our American viewers, this kind of reminds me a little bit of a Whistle Pig expression. Mm-hmm. I think they do use Alberta rye for Whistle Pig.
They
right?
do, yeah.
They source it there. bottle it in the States, but yeah, really nice, strong, bold rye spice on this too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, whenever, because of COVID, I thought this was a good idea to do because we spent a lot of time, my friends in the neighborhood and stuff like that, spent a lot of time drinking outside.
Sure.
Because you can't, like, you wanted to keep your social distance, you wanted to, not be in each other's houses. So, we'd be outside, we'd be 6 feet apart or whatever it was, and we would all have a drink. And I found whenever I brought some of my good scotch out, we kind of lost the quality of that scotch. So then we had to adjust. We had to, figure out something different. So we decided to go with more bourbons, more straight ryes like this one.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, smoky, heavily peated whiskeys work really well outside as well.
Yeah, I think when I see myself when I'm drinking outside, it's around a campfire perhaps. Peated Scotch works really well because you get those strong flavors, and it works well with the campfire smoke that you're already getting to.
Yeah, thing is, sometimes there's some people will only drink spirits, right? So if you're gonna drink a spirit outside and you want to select something that you're not losing out on the experience, you don't want to bring a 35-year-old whiskey, the Scotch outside, and then it just completely eludes you the quality and the complexity of that whiskey. You know what I mean? So by bringing out, an Alberta Premium 100% rye or even an Octomore or something like that. I think Octomore was one of the ones they used in that video that time, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get a quality experience. Maybe there are still some nuances that you would pick up more so inside than outside, but it still stands up to the, like we said earlier, the elements. You know what I mean? Some people want to drink at a beach or,
sure,
and that's an experience that you won't be able to have and really enjoy that whiskey if you choose something a little lighter. So
I think that the nose really gets affected when you're outside. Taste and palate, might be really, really close, but you're definitely losing, what would you say, 30 to 50% of the nose when you're outside?
Easily.
I remember we cracked that Craig Alecky 23 out here for the very first time.
Yeah.
And I feel the nose was a little bit muted. And also that Springbank 25 had a little mini dram of that as well. Nose, again, different than when I went inside and tried it
for sure. Time. Yeah, I mean, the quality on the nose definitely is lost. And you need something that's really going to stand up to it. Even if I find even cask strength Scotch, though, it doesn't really have that same effect. It doesn't really have that. I don't know if it's because of the virgin barrels in some 100% rye and bourbon barrels, and they stand up maybe because of the oak. I'm not exactly sure what the interaction is and what the cause of it is, but there's almost some off-putting notes that you can get from being outside.
Sure.
on the nose, right?
Maybe a good question for our viewers: what's your favorite whiskey spirit to drink outside? What do you go to? Is it a bourbon, peated Scotch? Let us know in the comments down below. All right, so let's move on to our rant topic. Kind of a combination with what's going on in YouTube. We kind of started this discussing in a previous podcast about Ralphie and how he was very against being sent product from reps, from anyone really in general, even fans, because he wanted to keep his bias 100% limited. We kind of commented that we each got a few bottles gifted to us from reps, and how we felt that we gave very fair reviews to those bottles. Like I mentioned before, that Matsui Mizunara cask, we both reviewed that, did not like it, made it very well known.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think Bill from Whiskey Dick, he reviewed it as well. Very same sentiment. He was overpriced, too young. He was gifted that bottle as well. So I think that kind of shows that you can be unbiased with review, even if you get it from the rep. I mean, I said it before, if everyone thinks that you need to make this relationship with the rep and you need to give them good reviews so they keep giving you good product. You know what? If the product's not good, do you really want it again anyway?
No, you don't. And
I think so.
I think there are some people out there that are influenced by it being a gift. I think that's kind of the nature of the beast. It does happen. I'm sure there's bad cops out there, there's bad teachers out there, there's bad whiskey reviewers out there, right? And we're not here to name names, but there are people that are definitely swayed by some money, something free, and whatever, But I think tonight we kind of wanted to hammer home that is it almost as detrimental, as problematic to have your own bias towards a distillery?
Sure.
Whether positive or negative.
Yeah, there's lots of other biases you can have rather than just wanting to make a favorable review because someone gave you something, right?
Exactly.
Even if one of your good buddies gave you a bottle, it's like, this is my favorite stuff, review it. If you don't like it,
Right.
you're like, my buddy's an idiot, or like, what are you going to say, you know?
Yeah, it's good. It would be really hard to bash that product. It probably finds its way at the back of your cupboard, and hey, I don't know what happened to that bottle.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a nice way of saying that you don't like a whiskey. I think for reps and stuff like that, you have to be completely 100% upfront that you got the bottle from a rep. You don't like it.
Exactly.
Not everyone likes every whiskey.
Exactly.
And I think that we showed that in our reviews of that Mizunara cast, same with Bill.
Yep.
So, you can get product from a rep and be unbiased with that review. But like you said before, what about your favorite distillery?
Yeah. Now, I think, are both Springbank homers,
Yes.
right? But we've received bottles that didn't meet expectations, right? Now, is part of you screaming, this better be good because you spent X amount of dollars on it? Yeah, I'm guilty of that. I want it to be amazing. My expectation is that it's going to be amazing. But we've had some duds.
So we are members of the Springbank Society, and we get first access to some single cask bottlings that come to our area. One that jumps out is a 14-year, 13-year fresh port cask?
15-year, yeah.
15-year fresh port cask. So this one was on our radar. We got a bottle of it. Very expensive.
Yep.
Springbank port, we're both huge fans of that.
Absolutely.
Last year's 21-year-old, it had that like almost 50-50 port in it. It was such a really good whiskey.
Incredible. One of our favorite whiskeys of all time.
Yeah, there was a boutique company did a Springbank port. I think Narby malt reviews were just raving about. So we had high hopes for that.
Yeah.
So going into that, you do have this preconceived notion that this is going to be something that's going to be epic and amazing. And even though it was like a pretty good whiskey, it did not deliver on what we were expecting.
No, it did not. And it's unfortunate. I think 50% down the bottle, it started to really change and get better. But by that point, like, it's almost like it's not a fair assessment of the whiskey anymore, because it took half a year for it to get to where we need it to be. And that's not what we're looking for. We want something, okay, if it takes a couple months, sure, a month, sure, but half a year or more, and it's still like not at the meeting the expectation that you had of it, I think that's a problem. I was actually gonna bring up, remember that overrated, overpriced that I tend to do from time to time?
Sure.
I threw the Springbank local barleys into that mix, right? And mainly because they're so heavily priced, like they're so expensive, and for me, they've been about 50-50. There's been some really, really good ones, and then some just okay ones.
Yeah.
And then the one that really hits home for me is the Long Grow 21. I had huge expectations of that one. It's big dollars. That was close to $500.
Yeah.
And just did not perform the way I expected it to.
And I mean, I think like us as whiskey reviewers, we have to be like judgmental in that regard. Like, just because it's our favorite distillery doesn't mean we have to be like, like you said, Homer. We don't have to we have to tell the truth. Like, like not every distillery is going to come out with a good whiskey every single release, right? Like, and even look at distilleries you don't even like. Like Tomatin, for example.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the Tomatin core range at all. Although Tomatin's got some really good expressions. You have to they're little like limited editions here and there.
Yeah.
Every distillery can come out with a really good whiskey. Every distillery can come out with a really bad whiskey.
Yeah, I think what the problem is we have a whole bunch of people trusting our opinion. They invest their hard-earned dollars into things that we say are really good, right? I don't want to be on the hook for someone's $500 that they wish they would have spent otherwise, because I totally inflated the value, totally inflated the quality of a whiskey that was just subpar because it's my favorite distillery.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm not throwing out no 99 for a run-of-the-mill basic whiskey. You know what I mean? That's just I don't even know if I'll ever see a 99 in my life, let alone give it to, 10-year-old from a basic core range. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like if you are a big Macallan fan and all you do is say positive things about Macallan over and over and over again, you never say anything bad about Macallan, even though not all the releases are great, you know, there is something that I'm not going to trust a reviewer on, because you can't say anything negative about a product even though there are some negative qualities about it.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about Ralphie a lot, and I love Ralphie. I think he's one of the most accurate when it comes to his marking and that sort of thing. Obviously, we have our differences of opinion, but I don't think integrity marks should increase the value or increase the mark on a whiskey. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think just because it checks all the boxes it means it's a good whiskey.
Well, the thing about Ralphie is that he does give additional marks if a whiskey is presented a certain way, which namely is it has an age statement, it's non-chill filtered, and there's no added coloring.
Right.
Now, age statement I kind of have a problem with. I don't think a whiskey should be getting extra marks for something that doesn't necessarily affect the taste of a whiskey.
Absolutely.
If you're drinking something blind, you don't know if there's an age statement or not. It
That's
should
right.
have no effect on your score. But because it has an age statement, you know, he's bumping it a mark or two.
Yeah.
I think there's a bias right there, right? There's another
Absolutely.
bias in a review.
I mean, I've read reviews from Serge that I'm thinking, okay, I love Serge. I think he's like the whiskey reviewing god. Like,
Yeah, so Serge from Whiskey Fun, probably one of the most, if not the most, respected
100%.
reviewers in whiskey.
And this is not a knock. I'm not saying I disrespect him. I actually look up to him. I think very highly of him. But I've seen marks that he's put out there that I'm like, this can only be coming from a place of bias. And I don't mean that he's biased because he was influenced, he was given a kickback. He was, you know, there are whiskey reviewers that probably accept kickbacks and that
Cough, cough, Jim Murray.
Yeah, exactly. But he's not one of them, I don't think. And but then all of a sudden you'll get like a Highland Park 10 with a 90 score, and
Yeah. Like,
And
where's that coming from?
I like Highland Park 10. I think it's very, very good whiskey, but in the core range, it's probably my fourth favorite. You know what I mean? So
Sure, like, look at the stuff Serge from Whiskey Fun given a 92. Epic whiskeys.
Epic, yeah.
That, you know, it's he marks tough.
Yeah.
As he should, because he's tried epic stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think he's over 16,000 whiskey reviews
Yeah.
on his website, so he's tried almost everything.
That's right.
So he doesn't get to the 90 mark that often, yet he's giving Highland Park 10-year-old a 90 out of 100, and he doubled down on that. The next year release, another 90 out of 100.
Yeah, and where that tends to bother me, and I'm not knocking his mark. Maybe he does really like that Highland Park 10-year-old, and he does feel it's a 90. But then if something's marketed a little too heavy, that's automatically like a -10 for him on the list. Like the Highland Park, the dark and light, like just got chopped. You know what I mean? Like he tends to really be harsh on the whiskeys that are heavily marketed.
I think Ardbeg, those special releases, he's very tough on those ones.
And maybe rightly so. Maybe he's onto something. Maybe he's like trying to do a service to the whiskey community by doing stuff like that.
Right.
I wouldn't put that past him, but it's just hard to stomach looking at a whiskey that I have grown to love in like the 82 range,
Sure.
and then I see something that's just subpar, that like run of the mill 90.
Well, let's talk scores as far as a bias as well, because we mentioned Jim Murray, and it seems to me and to a lot of people that his Whiskey of the Year award is up for purchase, right? I mean, he came out with Crown Royal, Northern Harvest Rye, 97.5. I mean, if you're scoring all these whiskeys 97.5, can I really trust a 97? Like, how is that whiskey 97.5?
Yeah,
out of 100.
Now, obviously, we may suspect some foul play there a little bit, right? I mean, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. This is not like a legal statement here, but I suspect foul play, and I'm not gonna deny that. Now, the problem is if this is your whiskey of the year, what are you basing? What is your system? Like, is the value of a whiskey, is the value versus quality, is that your number one go-to?
If you look at his scores and his Whiskey of the Years, kind of like he has some in there that are, there's some BTAC in there. Most recently was the 1972. Good value buys. If you're paying retail, of course. I mean, he had Booker's Rye in there, which is obviously crazy money now.
Well, like all the B tax.
But I mean, yeah. But at retail, those are good value whiskeys.
Right.
You just can never buy them at retail, and if you do, you win you win a lottery to purchase that bottle at retail.
There was a point where Northern Harvest Rye, because of Jim Murray, was going for $150 a bottle.
I remember the days of getting into the LCBO as fast as you can to pick up a bottle of that.
It was a fight.
Never been more disappointed with any whiskey, I think, in my life than the first time I tried that Northern Harvest. I'm like, really? This?
This is the whiskey of the year.
This?
Yeah, it kind of hurts.
So yeah, if you're scoring whiskey between the ranges of 88 out of 100 and 96 out of 100, how can really someone judge your reviews on just that tight scale of scoring?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be able to put out a few 70s. Obviously, you have to be able to fairly critique a whiskey. And obviously, like, people could be looking at my scoring system and be like, this guy's maybe too generous, too harsh. I think there are things that I'm perhaps too generous on, and maybe there are things that I'm too harsh on, right? I think that's kind of everybody. But to get up to the 96 range, 98 range, 99 range, 100, whatever, and not have a whiskey that literally blows your mind,
Yeah.
you're doing an injustice.
Sure.
To your own marking scale,
Yeah.
I think, right? Like, you're basically saying that something as simple as a Macallan 12-year-old can blow your mind, and it shouldn't. That's the whole part of the journey, is that whiskey shouldn't blow your mind. It's a very good whiskey. It's a whiskey that everybody should have on their bar because it's a good stepping stone to build your palate.
Yeah.
But it's not a whiskey that's gonna blow your mind by any means.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I've been criticized with some marks being too low in some circumstances. Like, I remember my Lagavulin 16-year-old, I think I scored it. It was either 87 or 88, right on that line where I'd suggest buying it. And someone commented, like, how are you not scoring this in the 90s? Like, I love this whiskey. It's, like, super epic. I'm like, you know what?
5-6
years ago, when I first tried that whiskey, I would probably score it a 90.
Yep.
But then coming back to it, subsequent batches I think are a little bit off. I think there's some batch variance with the Lagavulin 16-year-old, and really that whiskey is great. But once you try some other peated stuff, that score is going to dip for you. I mean,
Yeah.
I know it's one of those that a lot of people go to right away once they get into some more heavier peated stuff, and it's great. But complexity, character, diversity in that whiskey, not into the 90s.
Yeah, it's a building block. It's a whiskey that you need to try to get to where you're going to end up in your journey, right? But it's simply that. And just because that's somebody's everyday dram, that doesn't mean we're knocking that. And that's probably, I would love to have a bottle of Lagavulin 16 on my bar at all times.
Yeah, of course.
But it's a whiskey that you go back to every once in a while, but after a certain amount of time in the journey that there's a lot better out there.
And I think that's the whole thing with marking and scale, is the more you try, the more quality stuff you try, it's going to slide all of your marks down a bit, right?
And so it should.
We all have marks that we scored, a year ago, 2 years ago, that if we rescored today, they'd be 2-3 points less.
Yeah.
Just because of what we tried since then.
Exactly. And you know what? And vice versa to that. Like, I think the first year I started my channel, I was very careful not to give anything a 90. I don't think I gave out 190, and I got some heat for that because they're like, well, you don't know, but that's actually a really great whiskey. And I'm like, sure, maybe it is.
Yeah.
But is it that much better than what I've tried up until this point?
Sure.
No, so it doesn't really deserve a 90. And it took me a long time to get into that zone, and then maybe I was a little too trigger happy with the 90s. But then I think I'm at a point now in my marking where at least I understand what it takes to get to 90. And I think everybody's got to go through that. But when you're marking whiskeys for decades, like a man that we've mentioned already once tonight.
Sure.
And you're throwing out those 97s like they're candy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People need to really pay attention to that.
It discredits it, and it's a huge bias. I remember another review that I done Springbank 21-year-old, 2019. I scored it 91.5. I said it was one of the most drinkable whiskeys I've ever had. Comment section, well, if this is the most drinkable whiskey, how come it's not a higher score?
Right.
Well, drinkability isn't necessarily everything that I'm looking for or
Correct.
scoring for in a whiskey, right? Complexity, character, is it that one that changes in the glass as you go through it? Is it like chameleon?
Right.
So those things are more valuable to me
Even
in a score.
Yeah, like wow factor plays a huge role for me. Like if I open up a bottle, or if I've gone back to a whiskey a few times, by the fourth time, if I'm still getting that wow, then there's something really special about that whiskey. You know what I mean? Like, because we've tried a lot of whiskeys to this point, and for something to wow you every single time you go back to it, for me, that's something in the 92 to 95 range.
Sure. Another good point, if you flip around the other way, how about like a negative bias towards a whiskey, right? Like let's say Macallan Edition series that are coming out, it's non-age statement, expensive whiskey. Are you going to have a negative inclination towards that before you even try it on the other kind of scale?
I think a lot of people do. I think I was a little guilty of this myself, to be honest with you, with the Macallan Estate. I don't know if I gave that a fair shake, just because it was an expensive whiskey. It was a no-age statement, and it was kind of more of the same of what we've come to know from like the 1824 series from Macallan and that sort of stuff. So I don't know if I was as fair as I should have been with the Macallan Estate. I think a lot of people are guilty of being a little harsh towards something just because they have a certain bias towards it.
Yeah, and I mean, thinking about the next Ardbeg committee release that comes out, disappointed a little bit with the drum, disappointed a little bit with the grooves. The black comes out. I'm thinking, okay, this one's got to deliver, because I'm already going into it thinking, is this Ardbeg cutting another corner with these special releases that are so expensive yet not even holding up to the core range?
Right, and that's got to affect your mark a little bit, right? Like, you've already lowered your expectation of what's going to come next because of what you've experienced from that distillery already. Yeah. I think a great example of it was the Aaron 18 that just came out. I did the review on that. But pretty much everything I had up until that point from Aaron was a little too hot, was a little too plain for me. And all of a sudden I got that Aaron 18, and what I expected was going to be like an 85 just blew me away.
Yeah.
And that can probably almost tilt my marking scale a little too much, because you're expecting such low, a whiskey that's just not going to perform the way you expect it to, and then all of a sudden it just blows you away. So I guess that could influence your mark a little bit too.
Let's finally talk about one of the last things. I think one of the major things in biases is how much you spend on the bottle, right? If you come home and you just purchased 200, 300, 400, whatever is a large amount of money for your whiskey budget, you're going to have a preconceived notion about that being better than it might be. And I think that's really one of the hardest things to do as a whiskey reviewer, is something that's super expensive and giving a super honest mark to something like that.
Yeah, I think some people definitely are affected by this more than others, but it's one of those things that in the beginning especially, it was really hard for me to accept that I just spent $500 on this whiskey, and it's there's no more quality to it. It's not better than something I spent a half the price or a quarter of the price. And that hurts.
Yeah.
But B, it's hard to turn that expectation off.
Right.
You're trying to find things in that glass that aren't actually there.
Yeah. I think that you have to realize that, there's so much whiskey out there. The journey is so long. There's going to be stuff that disappoints you that's super expensive you had super high hopes for. Remember, I tried the Macallan 25-year-old. I had so much hype around this. I wanted to try this bottle for so long. Rohit, a good friend of ours, let me try a pour of it. You know what? Yes, it was very good, but did it blow me away? No. I think that the Macallan cask strength that we tried last episode was a better whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I've heard the Macallan number 6 or whatever is a lot better than the 25-year-old as well. Of course, there's a price difference or whatever, but even those, like, I remember watching the Scotch 4 dummies review the Macallan number 6.
Yeah.
And we all know what that bottle costs. It's like north of $4,000.
Yeah.
I think, American.
Depends where you find it, but yeah, you can spend definitely that much on it.
Right? And they weren't overwhelmed by any means. Like, they weren't blown away. And you should be when you're spending that kind of money.
Sure.
You should be when
you would expect to be, yeah.
You would expect to be when you're spending north of $500.
Right.
North of $1,000, you're like, this is gonna be epic.
Yeah.
North of $2,000, this better be mind blowing. And then north of that is just, it's stupid. Like, you need to. The bottle should be priced according to the quality of what's inside.
Sure.
Right?
And I think those guys did a good job of saying exactly what they felt about that whiskey. I don't think they let the price, the prestige of that Macallan overwhelm what they were actually getting in the glass.
I agree. Actually, I commend them for that, because that would be really hard to do. Like, you just spent, especially if that $5,000 came out of your own pocket.
Sure.
That's a tough feat
Yeah.
to admit to everyone, to the world, that you just spent $5,000 on rubbish.
Yeah, there goes $5,000.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, no, it's that money definitely plays a factor, whether we like it or not, and I think it will always. But I think you have to figure out a way to hone it in and realize that, you know what, not every dollar invested into our whiskey reviewing is going to be well spent.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. There's got to be some money put aside for that rainy day where you're going to get that crappy bottle. I had a series of bottles that came in that just weren't performing to my standard, and maybe my expectations have become too high, but these were bottles that I was expecting big things from that just didn't perform. Last year's Long Girl Red, for example, was an example, the Pinot Noir. Sure. This year was great. I like this one a lot, the Chilean Cab Sav, I think it was. Yeah. But last year's just didn't perform, and there was like a series of things that I just didn't love, and it was really disappointing. But you have to suck it up, you have to give it an honest review, and you got to move on.
Yep, I think you need to understand that there's going to be good releases, bad releases, and you just, as reviewers, we just got to be completely honest about that. So there's definitely lots of biases that go into whiskey reviewing, and just because you're not necessarily getting free product doesn't mean that your biases aren't there. It doesn't mean that you have all this integrity, like, oh, I don't accept any free bottles, therefore I am the most honest, straight shooter reviewer there is. No, there's lots of biases that could potentially pop up.
I think that's important to note, because you have a certain standard towards something doesn't make that better than the next guy, and because I have a certain standard towards something doesn't make me better than somebody else. Everybody's just got to do their best to be honest, and that's it. That's 100%. That's what our viewers expect and deserve, right? Because at the end of the day, we're helping them spend their money, so the goal is to help them spend it correctly. Something that they're going to enjoy, something that they're going to be thankful for.
Sure.
All right, so secondary market finds.
Yes, so Buffalo Trace has done it again. They've released a new Weller, the single barrel expression. Are they just trying to just throw a wrench in bourbon drinkers? It's just such a...
I think this is probably my most dreaded topic when it comes to whiskey. I think I hate this the most. I hate the fact that there are so many people that will go out and literally commit murder to get these bottles. This Weller single barrel will literally be the cause of so much death. It's because this bourbon craze is getting out of hand.
It's insane. I think this is topping it. So hit the secondary market. Do you want to know how much the very first bottle that I saw went for in auction?
I'm afraid.
$760 US.
What is this? First of all, what is this retail?
So I think retail is $55. I think it's the same as the full proof. So yeah, crazy money. Now, let me preference this. There were some comments about this auction that there might be a little bit collusion happening with this price, because someone's friend could be bumping it up to set the standard for pricing. Now, a lot of people were saying that in the comments, but since then, I've seen others go for the $700 mark. $6.75 was the very lowest I've seen it go for in a lottery. So you're still right around that. So it worked. I mean, if they did collude and made that price point set at, you know, $7.50, $7.60, it worked, because when other Weller products came out, you saw kind of the same thing. Like Craft Your Perfect Bourbon first came out $600, right? And then as people started to open it up and taste it, they're like, no.
Baker's 13, I think the same thing.
Sure,
right?
yeah. Like as soon as it hits, boom, huge price.
Yeah.
Then it will come down. So I do envision this Weller single barrel coming back down.
Yeah, once they realize that the 107 is just as good, they're like, yeah, you know what, we made a mistake.
I did find a picture on Instagram, the only open bottle of Weller single barrel I've ever seen. I'll put it here. So one person actually did open up a bottle and try it, because like, can you really open this bottle up? Like really? Like it's $750.
It would be madness to open that bottle. Like if you got 10 of them, you can't even open one of them. Like
right?
if you can flip them for $700, even if you can flip them for $500, that's not $500 worth of like liquid in that. You know, it's not that high a quality whiskey, right? So, I mean, I'm speaking from ignorance because I haven't tried it. Maybe it's, you know, angel tears and pixie dust all into one bottle.
Is it going to be that much better than the Weller Foolproof? I thought the Weller Foolproof was a very good whiskey. Obviously not near the secondary market value.
No,
none of them are. None of them are worth what they go for in the secondary.
I felt the 107 was just as good as the Weller Foolproof.
Like, I disagree.
Yeah, we did disagree on this, and that's good. We can't agree on everything, but I felt like the 107, for a bottle that was readily available at the time, like there have been times where it just sat on, well, not just sat on shelves, but like we've had a good amount of 107 that, you know, those bourbon junkies couldn't literally clear out every single shelf in Ontario. You know, so everybody got a little bit.
There was a time.
You
picked that up for $35 Canadian.
Just before the price hike, yeah.
Great
Just
deal.
before the price hike, it was $35 Canadian, yeah. And now it's, I think, $70.
Right.
But still, I guess, compared to the secondary market, not a horrible price.
Yeah.
So you're getting that for $70, and there was thousands on shelves in Ontario last year this time.
Yeah. So here's a picture of a guy selling a complete Weller set. So the Special Reserve 107, 12, Craft Your Perfect Bourbon, the Foolproof, and the single barrel, asking $2,200 for the complete set.
That's absurd. So this is the set of the actual bottles.
6 bottles. Yeah. 6 full size bottles, $2,200.
$2,200. Retail value of less than $500.
Retail value of like $350 or something, right?
Come on. What's that show? I feel like we have to have a come on man segment on this show.
On, man, segment, yeah.
And it would just be about bourbon.
Just bourbon secondary
It
market.
would literally just be about pretty much. It's absurd. Maybe Japanese whiskey could fit into that category too.
Yeah, Japanese whiskey.
But this is crazy. I mean, I don't even think Weller wants this to happen. I don't even think they want. I know that they know it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
and maybe they're screwing with us a little bit by doing this kind of stuff.
I think so. I mean, well, I don't know. What are they gonna do? Not release any new product?
Well, that's the thing. But literally, they're just changing the color of the label. They're calling it something else, and it's all the same stuff. One is a little stronger than the other.
Yeah.
Difference in ABV between the Foolproof and the 107 is what, 10 proof?
Let me pull it up.
It's not much.
I'll put it here on the screen. So yeah,
the CYPB.
I think it's an extra 7 points, right?
Yeah, the CYPB is a highly collectible one because it literally was a one-off, and it never came back.
No, it did.
Okay, so now I'm already incorrect.
Yeah, I thought that too at one point, that it was just a 1-year release, but they have released that in subsequent years. Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. So now this new single barrel, the 12-year-old is released every year. The Special Reserve is garbage and released every year, and you probably find it on most shelves. So I think value-wise, go with the 107 and stop chasing.
Even
secondary.
the 107 you have to chase now. It commands secondary market value.
It does. You get it's $100 US.
Yeah.
It's $100 US. I guess out of all of them, it's probably the only one that I would like could justify, because as much as which I don't actually but like how many bottles are produced of
That's
the
the
Antique
thing.
107 a
How
year?
many bottles are there? Because I think it's there's a lot more than people think, right?
The problem is, in the U.S., there's a lineup every time, and there's a big group of guys that like know when all the releases are gonna happen, and they literally line up. And there's like a line. Like, some people just probably join that line because they have no idea what's going on and they just want to be part of the line.
Yeah.
But there's like huge lineups for these releases all the time. So the 107 is like across the U.S., maybe 1,000 people have all the 107. Like literally, like it doesn't make sense. Like how much they're producing, at least 50,000 bottles a year, if not more.
Way more.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
So-
they're producing like 25 to 30,000 bottles of George T. Stagg in the antique collection. a year.
Exactly. So
And
you
that's
got to
cask strength.
think the 107, 100,000 plus,
Yeah.
right? A year, and it's gone. Like
Yeah.
it's gone from shelves. Like
Yeah.
people are just like, I don't know. They're using it to build stuff. I think. I don't know. Like I don't
I
get
mean,
it.
like, is it just frustrating to hear about this stuff as like a bourbon drinker? Like, you know, like a release comes out and you're like, I'm never getting it. I'm
Yeah.
never seeing it. I'm not going to pay the secondary market prices, obviously. So it's like, it just pisses people off to even hear about it, right?
Yeah, and well, it's that like that joke that I don't even know who said it. It's just one of the bourbon guys, and they're like, "Yes, I'm so excited for another bourbon that I'll never have a chance to get in my
It's
life."
like, stop talking about it. I hate you.
Yeah, like it's not fair.
Now, that being said, I will be purchasing spots in a lottery to try to win one of these things.
Yeah, I know you will, and you'll probably win it because you have horseshoes. But I mean, I have honestly very little interest in finding out what that single barrel tastes like.
See, I'm very interested in it.
I think I need to hear what other people say about it first before I even bother.
I know, but like, how many people? Like I said, there was one picture I found on Insta. There's probably more now, but at the time, one picture of an open bottle. Everyone else just sealed up, being like, "Look what I got."
Yeah.
No, you can't have this.
Well, we know our bourbon boys will be after this very soon. You know that Jason from the Mash and Drum's gonna get this.
They've got their fingers, their
yeah.
little mitts on people.
They're gonna get it.
Guys
The
that
bourbon
stirs,
junkies
yeah.
will get it.
Yeah.
Chad and Sarah will get it.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting this bottle, right? It's just who gets it first.
Yeah, the race is
That's
on,
the guy
right?
that's gonna get the 100,000 views on this, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, well, you and I have very little chance of being the first to review this bottle. So for me, it's like, I have no interest.
Yeah, I mean, unless you pony up, you're not gonna get it. Right?
Yeah, and I have no interest in ponying up on this bottle.
No.
I'm still searching for my 10K sub bottle.
Yeah.
I'm not spending $500 on
No,
this
I'll
bottle.
throw $20-$30 into a lottery and see if I can get lucky and hit a spot and win one of these things. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like with all bourbon. I mean, I'm interested in it because I just want to know. I want it to be bad, kind of. You know,
Yeah.
like I kind of wanted like the Weller Foolproof to be bad, but I ended up really liking it.
Yeah, you want to be the guy to like just break everybody's heart.
Yeah, I know. It's just like, guess what? It's shit. All you taters are loving this, and it's garbage. But I assume it will be good. I mean, of course it will be good. Will it be great, is the question.
So there's a guy selling the sample set for the price of a BTAC bottle.
So this is really cool. Yeah, so I found this on the secondary market. So this is a customized sample set. This guy made this. So he got all the sample jars, did the labels, did the wax tips. He made the box and like
he invested in the correct colored wax.
yes.
Come on.
This is great. I think this is amazing, and I wish that I had the ability to do this because it's a great way to essentially like, let's say he did it with like there's the Weller line, and he did it with the Pappy Van Winkle line and the Van Winkle line with the Pappies. What a great way to finish off all your bottle kills and just keep little samples and just put it away for a rainy day and have the whole lineup done. But yeah, he wanted to trade the set for a BTAC, so you're looking at, he values it around $400-$500 US for that. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of money.
That's a lot of money,
A lot of money.
and he's gonna get it. He's gonna get it because it's actually a really nice presentation.
It looks great. I mean, what a gift to give someone. I mean, there's a little glass in there. He did the box, the etching perfectly. Really, really cool.
Yeah, it does look awesome.
Yeah.
I wouldn't spend north of $100 for that.
Yeah, I mean, actually, you know what? $100. Yeah, I would totally buy that for $100.
The
Pappy one, I would.
North of $100. The Pappy one for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, this. I mean, I don't care about the CYPB or whatever.
Right.
I don't care.
That's the only one I haven't tried, other than the single barrel.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bourbon guys listening to this right now. Are like, Rob, you suck, man. But like, it is what it is. Like, it's very hard to excite me when it comes to a new release bourbon because there's so many of them. They're so expensive, and they're so hard to get.
Right.
So it's like, tell me something I don't know already. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just it's very difficult for me to get excited for this kind of stuff. If you told me that there's gonna be a new core range expression of Springbank, 17-year-old, 100% port aged. Now I'm listening.
Excited.
Now I'm listening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm definitely interested to find out what that's all about.
I think part of like the whole whiskey, community journey hype is like getting excited about these releases. Like even if it pisses you off, it's still part of it. And I think I kind of enjoy it. I kind of like that aspect of it. I know it's super frustrating a lot of times. And it does become like an elitist thing, right? When you have a bottle like that,
Yeah.
You have like Pappy or whatever, B-Tax, and it's like it's a status thing almost.
It is a status thing. It is, and you're seeing it on YouTube for sure. It's like, who is gonna be the first guy? Like, the race is on.
The race is on for this.
Who's gonna be the
for
first
this
guy?
Single barrel.
We should do like a little side bet.
Oh, you want to do like odds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
who's gonna be, like, out of all the bourbon channels that you can think of right now?
Okay, I'm gonna throw it up here. This is gonna be my odds of what I think, because I know that some guys are really well connected and
Yeah.
have good connections. So I'm gonna put up the odds of what I think.
All right.
Let me know in the comments down below who you think is gonna be the first one to review this. And by the time we put this out, someone might already reviewed it. So
That's true. Someone might have already reviewed this. I think my guess, I'm going to throw it out there, and don't let this skew your...
no, I won't.
Okay, but I think it's going to be Jason from the Mash and Drum.
Okay.
I think he's going to be the first. I think the Bourbon Junkies might get it the same day and just not get the review out in time because they need a little more time to get together.
Right.
But they're going to be the second.
Yeah.
And then maybe Chad and Sarah.
Yeah.
So that's my first, second,
Okay.
third.
My list is a little bit different than that.
Awesome. So then we should put like a friendly wager, something down.
Okay.
And then we'll, like, how do we do this?
We'll figure it out.
A bar pour, whatever you want out of my bar, and this kind
Oh.
of sucks for you because you have a little bit better collection than I do.
No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do that.
Right.
So whatever I want out of yours, whatever you want out of mine, that's the
friendly wager on. Okay. Yep.
I think that's fair.
All right. We'll come back on the Rant podcast and mention that when the first person does shoot the review, and we'll see who wins.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to this Alberta Premium Cask Strength Rye. 65.1% ABV. Does not drink that heavy.
No.
What's the price on this bad boy?
$70.
$70 Canadian.
$70 Canadian. It's honestly one of the best priced whiskeys, I think, in the entire store.
Yeah, I think that's a great price on it. I mean, if you compare it to something, in the same ballpark, you're looking at Lot 40 Cask Strength.
Yep.
Lot 40 Cask Strength, $100 Canadian. So this is, substantially less than that.
Yeah, both no age statement.
Both no age statement now. The Lot 40 is now. I would take this over the most recent release of Lot 40 Cask Strength.
Yeah, I would be hard pressed not to do a head-to-head against a 12-year-old to see which one I like better, because I really like this. I don't know why it's so different than like a Lot 40 rye. They're all 100% rye.
I think that this, what stands out for me with this is those like peach. You mentioned like the apricot kind of like notes in it. Something that you might not find in all ryes that really works well with this one for sure.
Yeah, there's something like almost like spearminty and like gum-like on the nose.
Yeah.
Then you get, like I said, like the apricot puree for sure.
Yeah.
It's got like a really inviting nose. Like you don't really get any of that dill that you associate with rye.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
You do get a nice like caramelized barrel char kind of note going in there. So like I wonder what the char level. I think I heard it was a char number 3 virgin oak barrel for this.
Yeah.
On the palate, again with that sweetness and definitely the apricots there.
Yeah.
Some like minty or spearminty kind of note on the finish, which I actually really like because I like spearmint gum. Man.
Yeah, I think that they did a really nice job with this whiskey for sure. What are you going to score this bad boy?
I can't give this less than an 89. I have a hard time giving this less than an 89.
That's a huge score.
It's a huge score.
Yeah.
The reason why is because I love rye, A. B, I think this is such a great price that like people will ignore it because it's Alberta Premium and they don't know a lot about it. But think Whistle Pig, because really like Whistle Pig is pretty much all Alberta Premium. So, 89 for me.
I'm going 86.5. I'm going to bump it up a point and a half for value, make it 88 out of 100.
Okay.
I think that, for $70, this is what Canada can do when they present a whiskey the way that it should be presented, right?
Exactly.
Canada's known just for, like, mixing whiskeys, right? We pump out so much stuff that's great in a cocktail or mixed with pop or whatever.
Yep.
Finally, we're getting to something where our products can compete with other stuff in the market. I'm super excited for Canadian whiskey to go this way. There's not much of it, but there could be, right? Crown Royal could do it if they wanted to.
Exactly, and that's what makes this exciting, is that like Wiser's, like as much as we've knocked, or I've personally knocked things that Wiser's has done over the years, Wiser's has really like put everybody on notice that like, listen, we're gonna start pushing the boundaries of what Canadian whiskey should be. So you guys better take notice, and you guys better start upping your game.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, we're gonna run over you. And Alberta Premium is noticing what's going on, and they said, hey, we need to put out a 20-year-old, and we need to put out a cask strength whiskey. And I think they did a great job with this cask strength whiskey.
Yeah, Crown Royal, you're up. Let's see what you can do. Put something out that the whiskey nerds are going to love. You can do it. You can do it so easily. You know you have the stock. They have, millions of barrels. So figure it out.
Not just the amount, but the quality. They have quality. It's just they're not. It's like this beast. It's like Eric Bana just refusing to become the Hulk, man. Like I don't know what's going on with that, but it has to change.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us. Thank you for joining us. If you are unaware, we review whiskey on YouTube. If you're listening to this on the podcast, check out our YouTube channels, Whiskey in the Six and Sipper Social Club. You can catch this on all the streaming services. That's it.
That's it. Cheers, guys.
Until next time, guys. Have a good one. Cheers.